Okay, people, so now it's March 21st, 2017. As you can see, oh, there goes my screen. As you can see, I am taking it from ink to paper to pen to paper. This is just the bank. I haven't even gotten into the health authority yet. I'm studying this, even though I've read it like 100 times already. Because, I don't know, the clock is ticking here, people. So, but I'm trying, right? I think I was supposed to have a list of my documents in terms of evidence listed when I submitted this stuff. But I didn't do that because I thought I had time to gather it all up, list it, submit it once it got past through this pleading stage. But I don't think so. I think it was supposed to be listed first when you hand everything in. So I got to kind of work on this and fill in the blanks on that one. I'm trying to understand the different kind of damages, right? Because there's different kinds. And I listed them down, people. I just didn't list them down the way they like it listed down through their court language, right? So I can revise the statement of facts basically on my own to the best of my ability, which I'm trying to do here, as you can see. This is the point of this video. I'm now having to rewrite it again. And then I have to type it the way I wrote it. And I'm taking that information from all that, which I've already written. So, does it look like I'm going around in circles, people? And I haven't even done this book yet. Okay, people. This is what makes me mad. They call this frivolous. Like, literally. Does this look frivolous to you? Okay. And they want me to appease them in terms of using language that gives them freedom to move around in terms of ambiguity, right? Material facts, evidence can be confused as material facts, and material facts can be confused as evidence, and, you know, just twisting shit around all the freaking time, like this stuff. I'm having to rewrite it for the third time, because I have my note pile, then I printed that out, and now I'm writing this out. Okay, so in the meantime, I'm trying to look at these little titles, the headings that I have here, and I'm like, okay, the bank, right, assisted in the disappearance of Mr. Duncan, or I can say how the bank facilitated the disappearance of Mr. Duncan. Which one is more appropriate in terms of a little subtitle in between your, I don't even know what's going on with this thing. Okay, in between your paragraphs, right? As you go from thought to thought, right? See, I have a title here. Here's the title. This camera's just not working, man. Okay, timeline that led to the medical kidnapping of Mr. Duncan. Oh, I know they want me to drop the word medical kidnapping. But I'm sorry, people. I'm not going to drop the word medical kidnapping because this is serious stuff. This is what happened. People just don't disappear. Okay. So now I'm getting mad. Like, literally, I am getting angry with this. Because this is what I mean. I am being humiliated. For sure, I don't have to tell this story on the internet, right? But I think Uncle John would say, just keep trying. You know, just do what you do because you're doing a good job. Even though it doesn't seem like it. Like when I used to go out and do community stuff out in the, plant a community garden. And I had to fight with the city, and, I had to fight with the homeless shelter because nobody wanted a freaking garden out there because it was attracting homeless people, even though the homeless people are now on the cement. And, I used to do children's programs, and I had people, harass my kids, and, and call the cops on me. I've already discussed all that stuff. This is the same kind of crap. People, I got a good handle on the English language. And I'm being mocked. Right? Because there's probably a deadline in terms of having this amended. And I'm sitting here beating myself up because I don't want to offend the defendant. You know, I don't want to say medical kidnapping because I don't want to insult them. But when you think about it, Uncle John just disappeared, people. He was denied access to his immediate family. He was isolated, right? Just so many things were so wrong about the whole situation. And I don't know how to crack that nut open, people. I don't. Like, I'm sitting here again today, second questioning myself. Yesterday, I did that by hand yesterday, and I was feeling pretty confident, saying, okay, you can do this. Do it this way, and then go to the computer, type it out nice for them, right? Not for you, for them, right? For the second time, after you've written it out by hand twice and typed it out twice. And I'm tippy-toeing around my subtitles. Because I don't want it to be thrown out of court because they think the words that I am using is frivolous in terms of medical kidnapping. That's a frivolous concept. That stuff doesn't go on in society because we're civil. Our professional servants are civil. They commit no sin. That's what we're programmed to believe. And they think if they tell us that enough, even though they're kicking us in the teeth somewhere else, that we're going to be stupid enough to believe it. Alright? Assisted in the disappearance of Mr. Duncan. Well, if you're going to close somebody's bank account, run off the power of attorney, right? Don't give them any information, and accuse them of insinuations to justify locking them out, right? And then proceed to carry on with other activities that only sealed the door shut. So I don't know if he's somebody. I had somebody ask me today if Uncle John was alive. I said, I really don't know. So I'm sitting here getting ready to do this stuff. And I'm like, well, maybe I should be checking the obituaries, which I've already done once. And I'm like, okay, well, what do? Just pay it like a bill, you know? Just do it once a month at the end of the month. Go online, run his name through, see if he comes up dead. I'm sure his family will give him a little 2-sentence, oh, our loving brother died. Right? Kind of like what they did with the wife. Just a little like this. And I don't even know if that stuff gets posted all the time if people die. Maybe they just won't put one in. Right? Just let us always wonder. It's funny to them that we're just sitting here wondering. Sounds like a disappearance to me. Right? So, I just wanted to say that. This is what I'm doing. I'm trying to do. You know? And then I go off because I'm kind of going on what I wrote and I'm just trying to, you know, kick out that 95% of gibberish and bring in the more pertinent, the more upfront, the more staple of in terms of issues, right? So I'm like the role that John played and I played when maintaining a family home, people. Right? This was not a hotel for Uncle John. This was his family home. So that's kind of like a staple. That's kind of pertinent. That's kind of like up there, and you need to freaking, you know, make that known, right? That you're not just dealing with strangers here. So I put another subtitle there. But it kind of veers off what I was talking over there. So because it's not in a manner that they don't want to stop and think about, you know, they want their story in 5 minutes, you know. They want all the facts in 5 minutes. If you're lucky, you'll get 10, right? And if you can't give it to them in 10 minutes in the way they want it, they're not going to spend not even 1 minute with you. You're just going to, right? And move on to the next. Like an assembly line. Right? So, oh, God. Okay, so you see that number there? All right, do you see that number? 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 There's some evidence. There it is again. Other inquiries with banking management. Do I choose that as a subtitle or further follow up with banking management? Do you get it, people? Hold on a minute. Okay, so as I'm sitting here racking my brain, trying to move on with the amendment, right? Trying to pick a subtitle as to what's better. Right? Because I'm supposed to be impartial and indifferent. Right? Even though we know that anything to piss you off, right? I'm just like asking myself as I'm trying to focus on this. Obviously, I'm having a hard time because I'm talking on the camera here, right? You know, otherwise I'd be sitting here doing this by myself, completely by myself. Right? At least this way, you know, a story gets out, right? And Uncle John gets a little bit of justice, okay? He hasn't been forgotten about, right? So, oh yeah, I was talking about that obituary stuff. So let's just imagine, you know, if I start running his name through the computer once a month, like, you know, clockwork, right on schedule, just like when you pay bills, you know, you do it at a certain time. So every 30 days, you know, I'm running Uncle John's name through the computer to find out if he's dead or alive. And then it turns into an obsession, literally, right? Where, you know, I'm now Googling it every day. And I'm like, get that out of your head. Like, why are you even thinking about stuff like that? Because this is kind of like what it feels like when I'm doing this stuff, that, you know, it's kind of like an obsession. And it's not that it's an obsession. It's the fact that we're dealing with real human beings that have real feelings. They did not just affect John's feelings and mixed them all up and, you know, and threw some away and buried others and, you know, and gave some to somewhere else. And, you know, they affected my kids. They affected my grandson. And not that they only affect them in the short term, they affected them in the long term. So this is what fuels this, because we as a family, on Uncle John's immediate side of his family, need closure. But as you can see, I don't know how to play the court game. And as you can see, I'm by myself trying to find a way to fit in that court system. To, you know, have my kids be able to say goodbye. Right? Why do we have to Google Uncle John's name on the computer to find out that he died so that finally one day we can say goodbye? And then always have that cloud over us because of what institutions can do to human beings. So now I'm like, what brought me back for this? Because whatever, right? Now I'm thinking, okay, if the bank can take over Uncle John's account in a blink of an eye after 25 years of professing itself to be a servant, right? Why don't they come in and take my bank account over? They can manage my money for me. I have none. Right? They can file bankruptcy for me after they bankrupt me. Right? And they can have the trademark name. And they can go around and promote lunch programs and kids programs and, you know, feeding the homeless and planting gardens and, you know, trying to do something positive in the community You know, clean the waterways, or whatever it is, because there's lots of things that need to be done. You know, help look after the wildlife, look after the stray pets that are around, right? We still got Boots 2 running around in the yard. I mean, this bank is more than welcome to take on that project. Simply by taking over my bank account, like they took over Uncle John's bank account. What's the difference between Uncle John and me? I'm sure they can make a profit off the trademark name. Why not? It's a universal United States and Canada trademark name. With the right promoters, they could bring in billions of dollars, because that's what that nonprofit was designed for. Right? Let me tell you something. Back when my middle daughter was in kindergarten, okay? For 9 months, she was happy to go. And then one day, she just wouldn't go. She dug her heels into the ground, would cry, tell Uncle John, because he used to walk them to school, right? I'm not going to school. Long story short, her teacher, kindergarten teacher, who happened to be a first-year teacher, she was Asian of some kind, like a Chinese or something like that, right? And apparently she smacked my daughter on the face in the playground because my daughter didn't want to come in after recess and go back into class. Now my middle daughter is A-type personality in those days, like to barrel and run and, you know, jump and not be afraid. I'm that way too sometimes, especially when I was younger. So anyway, after, you know, I found out what was going on, right? I approached the principal, and the first thing that happened, people, was Shimei, she's my middle daughter, got accused of lying. And I'm like, well, I know my daughter, she wouldn't react the way she is acting unless something provoked it. But when you look at it for what it really was at the time, it was the union trying to prevent a lawsuit, right? Because the way they wanted to deal with the problem and put the blame on her, I said no. A 5-year-old's not going to lie about something like that. And they're sure now not going to dig their heels to the ground and refuse to go to school, right? After they were there for 9 months and you couldn't keep them away. So something definitely happened, right? And I was just coming into the game with the nonprofit. I don't remember the exact timeline. I'd have to figure it out. But I've been working on it for a while, and, you know, and I was kind of like at a crossroads, right, where I had to take the school to court, quite possibly, to have the matter of my daughter being smacked in the playground because she didn't want to get off the slide, and then my daughter got stubborn and didn't want to go. Instead, what I did is I pulled her out, brought her home for homeschooling, and I just told those people, I don't believe you. I don't believe what your method of dealing with a problem that's in your system, right? And because I didn't want to bring scandal to the nonprofit by fighting with the school, right, over my daughter being smacked on the face. Because, you know, it wasn't child abuse. It was an inexperienced teacher that got frustrated with my daughter. And I know what my daughter was like, so I could understand an inexperienced teacher with all these kids running around with my daughter being stubborn, and maybe she overreacted. Who knows? I wasn't there. And my daughter seen it for what she thought it was, and versus getting into the, oh my God, let's take this little molehill and turn it into this huge mountain, right? Because everybody's got a point to prove. I let it go. Well, this is different, people. This is different. This isn't one incident that could be interpreted in many ways, because again, maybe what my daughter's seen as something intentional may have been more reactional. But it was the fact of the way the school was dealing with it that I just forget it. I'll just bring her home, and there'll come a time when she'll want to go again, and it's like getting back up on the horse, and she'll go, and and it turns out she is an honor student, people. Right? When she applies herself. The only thing is all this mental trauma and drama and pain has capped all the creative. Like, my daughter can play beautiful, beautiful piano. Do you know when the piano started to stop playing? It was when they took Andre. Andre came back, the piano started a little more, and then Uncle John disappeared. She's lucky to play the piano 4 times a year for a half an hour. We come back from downtown, homeschooled, public school, so I'm both ways. I go with what the kid needs in terms of brain development. Because when the kids go to school and their brains are open, they learn more. And my daughter went into that. Okay? So she actually started teaching herself to read music at home. But she didn't really pick up on the language until she went back into school in grade 2. So she came home at the end of kindergarten, went back into the system in grade 2, had a learning spurt, right? Got a good handle on the English language, and was in school up until about, I think, grade 6 or something like that. And then she started acting out a little bit versus having her fall through the cracks and get caught up in with that. I pulled her out, and she stayed out of trouble, played music. Like I said, taught herself how to play music, right? And then went back into school in grade 10. And when she got there, she was an honor student right up into grade 12. But it started to falter when Andre was taken because of the pain. Well, it's the exact same thing when Uncle John was taken. She was preparing, taking courses to become a nurse. She was actually in a college. It wasn't the right one for her. She was thinking of transferring into something that was like what my son had done. And if she would have done that with the moral support, of Uncle John telling her that she could do it, I'm telling you people, she would have been a nurse today. Right now her life is in limbo. Okay? Uncle John would not have wanted that for her. Right? He held her the minute she was born. She was born, the doctor, within a couple of minutes, I didn't even get to see the baby, went straight to Uncle John. And Uncle John was just sitting there holding the baby. As we were cracking jokes with the nurse and the doctor and every other staff member in the Surrey Memorial Hospital. It was the best experience of my life. It was the best experience of Uncle John's life. And he's being robbed of that because institutional entities, okay, run by human beings, seem to think that they can just take over people's lives, have them disappear, and expect the remnants of those past lives to just blow away in the dust. So I'm not going to get obsessive looking for obituaries online because I'm not that nuts yet, right? I am giving it my best shot. You can see that. Obviously, I'm struggling with it in terms of subtitles and, the timeline of events and what's important and what's not important. And, I'm gonna oh, please, I hope I can go in front of the judge and ask him for more time. I just need a little more time to learn how to write it the way they want it. God forbid if I have to write it another time. That'd be like 4 times. Right? But what would you do for somebody that you love, that you know is just not too far away, and that if you keep on trying, sooner or later, and like when this happened, people, before I go, and when this happened, and it still kind of feels this way, because, first of all, we're dealing with religious people that are so godly, John's family, extended family, they're so godly with their Catholic religion. Mrs. Joan Duncan, John's wife, was so godly with her Catholic religion, right? So that right there puts them in a sphere of what do you call that? Superiority, right? I don't even know what the point of that was. There was something I was going to say around that. Oh, I don't know. I guess we'll just leave that one, because I don't know. I got to think about this and not worry about the things that I shouldn't be thinking about. Now I remember what I was making reference to. It was the Catholic Church that threw me off the trail, right? Because through the century, right? Native people have been exploited through the Catholic Church, right? Even though the state is supposed to be separate from religion, it was the federal government, obviously, and provincials, and the church that, did great harm to the Native people of Canada, right? And over the years, many of the people include, they say the missing women, but it's men too, right? But they don't focus so much on the men. They try to do remembrance for men, but there's a high number of Aboriginal women that are going missing across Canada and have been for a long time. And when Uncle John first went missing, it kind of felt like that. It kind of just felt like he was a person that nobody cared about and, made reference to from time to time. But when it came time to actually, find them or find the person that was taking them, nothing, right? Because, so Uncle John went missing. His family is Catholic, professed themselves to be so godly, but yet they partake in ungodly sin that is damaging to real human beings, as in innocent children, youth, young adults. Without any kind of remorse, through the facilitation of corporate entities that are run by human beings that benefit from the profit of exploiting those that have assets. Right? So, why are they not taking my bank account over? It's their pattern, right? If you go into their system, I'm sure you'll see lots of people have had their bank accounts seized by the bank in the context of protecting the account holder because they're old. But nobody questions the bank committing fraud, right? Do as I say, but not do as I do, right? I'm on that do as I do side with the bank in terms of they committed fraud. And I don't know how to write that down. But it's not something that I'm going to let go, like a missing woman, and just have Uncle John categorized as a missing woman, right? Well, we have godly people around us ignoring that problem, when in fact they participate in having it happen. Right? Like I said, the Catholic Church has a long history of disenfranchising families. You know, they took children out of the home and put them in the residential schools. Right? John grew up in that era. His family looked after those children. Right? Not far from the residential school. They went to the church that those people in that area that were native couldn't go, because they weren't allowed in the church because they were native. Okay? These are the kind of people that we're dealing with in partnership with the state in terms of like governance, right? With provincial healthcare system and a federal banking system. But there is absolutely no fraud going on in there, because we're dealing with godly people. Oh yeah. One last thing. As I was talking about Shimei there with, you know, the school and in and out of homeschooling and school and whatnot, and, you know, how she came out of grade 12 with honors and was, you know, working towards becoming a nurse, and then fell off the grid and everything, and the piano started to stop and blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, last week or whenever it was, right, last week, when we went downtown, you know, to try and follow up on this stuff here with the court, right? On the way back, I had to stop off at the Salvation Army thrift store, and in there they had a piano, people. One key didn't work, but it didn't matter. She ended up sitting down, and she started playing, and the piano was actually very nicely tuned for as old as it was, and she just filled the environment with this beautiful music, right, that everybody started commenting on. And one lady was like laying up on, like, they have like the furniture for sale. She's like, you know, like relaxed, and, you know, she's looking at her book, and she's like, "Where's the wine?" I'm like, you know, I'm looking through the fabrics, and I'm like, yeah, like, really, you know, bring some cheese and some crackers, and, you know, let's have a party, right? And yeah, people. And then one lady even gave her $10 for playing, right? That's how good she is, even without practice. And she was so brave, because she played for almost 45 minutes as people were coming and complimenting her, and, you know, and just the whole environment changed. Right? I tell her she needs to go back to school, obviously, maybe to be a nurse, but she needs to go for music. Right? Like, she needs to go to a conservatory of music or something like that, right? Just for a couple years, you know, just to get her writing it, because I tried to tell her, you need to write it too, right? So you know, this is what I mean. These people, doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's a bank employee. It doesn't matter if it's somebody through, you know, a health authority. And it doesn't matter if it's an extended family. You know, they have any of these people, any of them, ever once stopped to think about Uncle John's immediate family and their feelings and their development in terms of a human being? Right? John was getting old. He had leg problems when he was 9, people. He was in a cast for 2 years because of Purse disease. He couldn't get out of bed for 2 years. He almost died as a baby with pneumonia. Okay? He had back problems as a young adult, got calcium on it, had to have an operation to remove the calcium, which affected his back long term. Right? His eyes were deteriorating through macular degeneration, which is non-curable, and they can't reverse it, right, once it's done, right? And He ended up getting a hit by a car in 84, but he survived that. And what saved him, people, was going off the medication when I came back from Alberta. And he functioned for 23 years. Well, 20 years. It took him a few years to finally get rid of the Tylenol 3s, right? But all the other stuff that he was on, he ended up getting rid of that before he moved in with me. Because that was like, you can't be taking all these pills if you think you're going to live with me. Because it affects you in a negative way in terms of, you know, being drowsy and dropping pills around. And, you know, he fell one time, right? It's like, don't come around me if you're going to start falling. So what's making you fall? So he started to wean himself off, right? And then he was down to his Tylenol 3s. And then he decided he didn't want them because it was affecting his behavior. It made him aggressive, right? And then he stopped taking them in 95. He never fell once after that, people. He was always alert. Always. Until he went and got sick and ended up in the hospital and then became permanently confused. Well, these people, regardless from where they come from, seem to think that, you know, his immediate family are insignificant. But yet, why doesn't the bank come and take my account? Like they took Uncle John's. I think a universal trademark name is more important than an old age pensioner's pension plan. And, well, a life insurance policy could be important to a bank when it's operating in the moment and wants to accumulate as much wealth as it can from wherever it can get it from. You know, and in this case, it will be the baby boom. And the system's already in place with the, you know, colluded network of this and a colluded network of that. And, you know, everybody else is turning their blind eye. You know, like they turned their blind eye with those missing women, right? Like they turned the blind eye with the natives being abused for all those years and, you know, still being abused, right? So this is kind of like a, I don't know what kind of video this is. I don't even know what kind of videos I've been making anymore these days. All I know is I don't want to be a lonely voice in a big wide forest all by myself. Right? Because I'm pretty lonely these days, people. This makes me lonely. Right? I'm still talking to Uncle John every day. Right? And isn't that amazing? I don't ever get mad at him. Hey? You would think that after all this time, for all this grief, I'd be like cussing him out by now. That's what normal people would do. They'd be like, what the fuck did you do to me, man? Like, why? I asked myself the question, why were you in my life all these years and then gone like that? Poof, like a genie in a bottle. Just poof, went right back into the bottle. Or whatever. Disappeared like a native woman. And nobody cares. Right? Because the Catholic Church has put a taboo on it. You know, it's untouchable territory. As in, they think that's his property. Mr. Duncan is their property. Right? They treat him like property, people.